Sometimes life will seem sometimes things don't go the way we want. Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We bring you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Today we have as our guest Alex Ko. Alex is a soccer player and a soccer coach. Alex, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm humbled to be here and very excited for this.
Well, that's wonderful, Alex. I tell you what, I was excited to come across you. You know, I live in the United States and I have visited two other continents or countries in two other continents. But then
Okay.
you are someone who has not only visited, countries in two other continents, you have actually lived in three continents. And I would like
Yes,
for you to tell us about that. Your first
absolutely.
continent and your second continent, and of course, where you are now.
Absolutely. So yeah, I find myself to be very fortunate to have that experience. So I'm originally from Togo, West Africa. You know, a very small country in Africa. That's where I was born. I grew up there up to the age of 10. A lot of the values that I have right now and also my ethnicity background is coming from there. I'm very grateful for that. Still speak the dialects of my parents and why not. So at the age of 10, I believe, we had the opportunity to move to Paris, a different continent, still a French speaking country. And with the family we made the move there. It's a whole cultural shock, even if it's still French, but it's French with a different accent. It's a different culture, different people, obviously, and we had to relearn all this, right? So that's the second country, and then now I had the opportunity to be in America. Again, a different language. Have to relearn a lot of things. Again, new culture, new people. So it's a blessing to be able to have a little bit of all three world. I would say,
Yes.
and then just kind of mix it into my own identity.
That's fantastic. That makes you a kind of citizen of the world. You know, you've lived in
Ah,
different places. So, parlez-vous français?
très bien, très très bien.
J'ai donné mon français et maintenant de pratiquer mon français.
Ah oui, ah ça c'est très bien.
Okay, so Alex, let me ask you, I'm curious about this. How do you, when you think about the world, when you think about the three places you've lived, Togo, France, and now the United States, do you think through the lenses of someone who lived in Togo? Do you think through the mind of someone who lived in France? Or do you think through the lenses of, an American? How do you view the world? Which of those cultural lenses?
That, that's a great question, and that's a very tough question to answer. So it's like I say, it's a blessing to be able to have the perspective. Again, all it's about perspective, right? And when I try to put together all the experiences that I have of all the different part of the world, and I try really to not have a perspective of just someone that is born in Togo or just have lived in France or and now is having a life in America. I think um, for me is more so understanding in any situation I'm on what would be the right thing to do based on all the experiences that I've had.
Mhm.
And obviously for my perspective is completely different than someone that has just lived in Togo, right? Because that's probably all they've seen, or someone that has just lived in France, because again, that's all they've seen, right? So my perspective is a lot different, and it shows in some of the decision I'm making, and also the lifestyle I'm having in
Yeah.
general. So that's my best way to answer that. It's a
Yeah,
very,
that's a
very
good
good
response.
question.
I get what you're saying. Now, this is the Possibility Action Network. We believe in possibilities, the possibility of individuals to reach their goals in challenging times. So let me ask you, you've lived in three places. I know you were a child in Togo, but which of these cultures, which of these places has been the most challenging for you? And what have you learned from those experiences?
Wow. I think the most challenging out of all of them, I would say probably America, uh,
Mm,
the place I'm living in now. Um, and part of the reason it has to do with the language. Obviously, Togo is it's a French speaking country, but obviously the dialects of ancestors are still there, and my parents have their dialect. So moving from Togo to France was a challenge, but in terms of the language, not so much because I already spoke French, right?
mhm.
So the easiest way to kind of grasp a culture is to first start speaking the language, because if you don't speak the language, it makes things very difficult to communicate with people, to understand people. It's very difficult. So I think the hardest one was for me was moving here in America, because I had um, no knowledge of English really beside the one that I've learned from in school in France. I could say my name is Alex, I am from this place, but that was about it. But everything else I had to learn. I had to learn how to speak. I had to learn how to understand people. I had to learn that here in America, there's a way of life that is different from what I was used to. And I was already 19. So it's not that I was so much younger. At the age of 10, it's so much easier for you to grasp onto a language and the culture than it would be at 19 or at 26 or even older, right? So
Yeah,
for me, it was that was a very challenge. That was a big challenge for me.
right. Yeah, and I guess if a person has only lived in one culture, they may not appreciate the challenge of understanding the subtleties that may go beyond words. For example, someone may say, "Well, come on, Alex," and that could mean, "Hey, Alex, come on now, you're exaggerating."
Yeah,
Someone else could hear "come on," which means to engage in combat. So
yeah.
the subtleties, I think, is what you have to learn as well. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's completely right. And
Yeah.
simple things as how to say hi. In
Mm,
French, there's a different way in French to say hi to people, to greet people. And here in America, it's completely different. So you have to relearn that. You
yeah.
know. So yeah, those little details really really matter. And
Right.
and the only way you can grasp on those cultural differences is if you get the experience to live in those countries.
Right. Well, your English is great, actually.
I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. So now I know you did your college education in the United States, and some young people are gonna watch this video. Some parents are gonna share this with them. And so you grew up in Togo, lived in France, came to the United States, and did you begin your college education here, or did you begin it in France?
So the college education really started here for me. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Now
So
you started at Lewisburg College.
yes,
That's in North Carolina, isn't it?
yes, it is.
Yeah. What was
Yes.
that experience like for you?
Wow. So Lewisburg was a definitely a special experience because it was my first time being in college in America, but also it was the time where I had little to none English, right?
Okay.
So obviously soccer kind of drove me there. With NCAA for some reason, I wasn't able to get into a big Division 1 school right away because I graduated from France. Again, it was a little bit tricky, but Louisburg just kind of opened that door for me.
Okay.
So the blessing about Louisburg was that it's a Division 1 junior college, which is a small college, and it was just about 800 students, right? For a college, is pretty small, it's the size of a high school. So I had an opportunity to be in the small classrooms of 20 to 30 students and really get the opportunity to learn to communicate with my teachers and whatnot. So that really helped me
Yeah.
to perfect my English a lot faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
That's fantastic. And I want to make sure that our listeners and people who are viewing this video appreciate this. I've had friends who came from Iran, for example, and one of
Okay.
them enrolled in graduate school at an institution where I was a professor. When
Okay.
he came, he could not speak one lick of English. And he
Yeah.
enrolled in a master's program, in engineering. Couldn't speak in English, and of course, he has to not only deal with his curriculum, he has to also learn the language. So can you walk us into that? I mean, how do you learn the language, absorb a culture, and then of course get an education at the same time? What was that like for you?
Wow, yeah, for sure. Well, you cannot do it if there is not that excitement there to learn, right? And also it cannot happen if you are don't have the right perspective on life and understanding that there's an opportunity for you there to grow, right? So I think for me, not to give myself too much credit, but I wasn't very shy, right? I wasn't shy to speak. I wasn't shy to make mistakes. I wasn't afraid to fail, actually. That's what I would say. I wasn't afraid to fail when I was speaking. I wasn't afraid of the little laugh of my teammates when I was speaking at all. So that really helped me to always constantly be
Yeah.
speaking, reading also, right? That kind of opened my mind a little bit on the grammar and whatnot. And going to class was a challenge. I remember my first econ class. Um, it was so funny. I was just sitting down there and looking around the class and people participating, and I want to say something, but I have no idea what's really going on. And it was a challenge. And for someone that doesn't have the open mind of understanding that things takes time, right? It could be a little discouragement there,
Yeah.
but I think the most important thing is to see the value in 6 months, a year from that time, what you could be, instead of just kind of focusing on the barrier that you have right in front of you, which is the language.
Wow, that to me, that's inspiring. I mean, you were just a young man at the time and you had those insights. And then you transferred from Lewisburg College to a big school, the
Yeah,
University of Connecticut. Well,
yeah.
that must have been intimidating.
Yes, it's funny. Coach Reed at UConn actually has been he tried to have me from my freshman year. And obviously, like I say, NCAA wasn't allowing it to happen, So I went to Lewisburg again, very humbling experience. A smaller school, it was almost like God humbling me, right?
Yeah.
Start here, start small. In terms of talent, I believe UConn was the standard I should have been, but I had to start somewhere. So after Lewisburg, things were great. But we won a title there, so everything was great. And then I transferred to UConn. So I
Mhm.
get to this school now that is 10 times the size of Lewisburg,
Yeah.
and it's again another shock. Now I go from 20, 30 people in the classroom to 100 to 200, right? So yeah, it was definitely a good challenge, but I was
Yeah.
excited for it. It's funny, I was super excited for it. I felt ready to take the challenge, and obviously my English was a little bit better then. Yeah, so I was very excited for it, and it went
Well,
well.
that's fantastic. That says a lot about you. And not only did you transfer to a bigger school, Medele, you also chose a very challenging major.
Yeah,
Now, some students would have said, oh, gosh, I'm going to get the easiest major I can because after all, I'm a jock. But you
yeah,
chose business and economics. So
yeah,
what moved you to, I mean, generally speaking, in America, some students, and I'm not putting down athletes, they may
absolutely.
they may shy away from challenging majors because they're athletes, but you gravitated to a challenging major. Can you tell us about that decision?
Yeah, so for me, I never wanted to put any limitation on myself and on my abilities, even the ones that I did not see right away. I always want to strive for more and challenge, just be out of my comfort zone. So business was something that I saw myself doing besides soccer, right? And there is always that question for me, okay, I'm blessed with this ability to play these sports, but what if, right?
Yeah,
What if the sports wasn't a blessing? What if I wasn't gifted with certain abilities that I have? What would I do? And my thing was always understanding on how the economy works, the business world works, and I got that early on from my parents. So I was very intrigued on that. I wanted to learn. I wanted to understand the management. I wanted to understand the risk. So even with the language barrier, I said, well, why not?
yeah,
That cannot just be the only reason why I won't have a degree in what I want to do maybe after my sports, right? So let's go, let's do it. So from that moment, it was about again humbling yourself and understanding that there's going to be challenge, right? But and then taking it on, but
Yeah.
it wasn't easy at all.
Yeah.
My coaches say, well, you crazy, it's going to be challenging with the soccer schedule and why now? But I said, hey, but I'm ready for it. If I wasn't ready, I wouldn't feel like I could do it. So yeah.
That's that's fantastic. I tell you what, I am just inspired just hearing this conversation. Yeah, but in addition to, someone who's lived in several countries and someone who, went to two schools and earned a great degree in business and economics, you're also an athlete. So I want to
Yeah,
go into that world with you. So, and of course, it's soccer. So,
absolutely.
in
Yeah.
Africa, in certain parts of Africa, most of Africans, most of Europe, football is really soccer, and
Yeah.
that became your sport. Now, but you said something that struck me a moment ago. You said that you were blessed with certain athletic talents. So, when did you know? At what point would you say that you knew that you had been blessed, touched in this area as an athlete?
Wow. I think when I was younger, I probably didn't had a grasp on the opportunity I was having because for me it was for fun, right? It was back in Togo, just playing in the streets with my friends and get to friends also still playing in the streets until one day a big club say, hey, you might have something here, join us and maybe we could help you get to another level. I think it really struck me, I think at 14, 15,
Mhm.
where you're competing against some of those top athletes now that with the French national team won the World Cup. You're like, wow, you are among the best of the best,
Mhm.
right? Of what France can offer, and you're there competing, and when I joined my Paris football club, it's known to be the second best in the entire Paris and arguably among the top in the country. So then you start to ask yourself question, all right, so
Yeah.
where am I going with this? Where is the opportunity? And yeah, I think 14, 15 was the age where I was like, wow, okay, not everybody gets this amazing opportunity and abilities, right? So now it's up to me to tap into that, so yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You begin to recognize yourself, but others around you began to spot your talent, and you took advantage of those opportunities. That's really great. So, you played in France, then you played in college. What was it like playing in college, playing soccer, especially at UConn, a big school? What was that like for you?
Wow, it was a great experience because for us in France, we never really think of what we call football in France,
Mhm.
soccer here to be a big thing. But UConn for me was a shock because we had about 5 to 6 thousand fans a game, a soccer game in college, which is arguably probably the best in the nation,
Mhm.
right? And for me, it was a shock. I said, well, I thought nobody liked soccer over here, but apparently some people do like soccer. So it was such a good experience. The facilities, the training, the environment, how people greet you, even just walking around campus, how people are willing to offer their help for you to be successful, and it's really again a blessing because not everybody get that opportunity, so for me it was a good time. It was a very good time, and I would recommend anybody to that is in love with the game and that's thinking about going to college, yeah, to definitely look into a program like UConn for sure.
Okay, that's great. But you also played professionally, is that correct?
Yes, I did. Yes,
Yeah.
I
What
still
was that
do.
like? Yeah.
Yeah, so after UConn it was so after UConn, so it's what's next, right? The top players in the programs like UConn get an opportunity to go to the combines. So I went to few combines, did well. I landed a team in Philly called the Fury, and then God just redirecting me all the steps away, brought me back close to where my parents are now in Maryland, right? To play for the pro team in Maryland now, which called the Bobcats. So yeah, so being now it's going to year two. with the Bobcats, and it has just been again a blast. It's just such a blessing throughout the process. And professional soccer is just a little bit different because now you constantly thinking about performing, right? So that you can keep on having the contract that you have, right? So that you keep having the whatever salary or meeting and meet pretty much, every step of the way you have to earn the next contract, so it's a little bit different than college, where often things are given to you based on the potential you could have. Now you're into the professional world and it's about what you're producing. Okay. Right? So that's a big difference there.
But I guess I missed something because I thought that you were a retired professional soccer player, but you're currently a professional.
Yes.
Listen, I apologize. Okay, that's awesome. That is awesome. But so, okay, many people, I would say very few of us get an opportunity to be in a huddle. Companies today, institutions today, organizations today talk about teams.
Yeah.
A few of us can get into a huddle with a group of athletes. So I want to set something up for you. Let's say that you're in a professional game, you're in the championship game. You need one more point to win the game. The team is really struggling. You're in the huddle with your team. What do you say to them? Or what have you heard other people on teams say to each other in that moment? Let's say that it's just 60 seconds to go. Yeah. You need one more goal to win. What do you say?
So it's funny you asked that question. Actually, at Lewisburg, we won a national championship at Lewisburg, which was the first one of the school, and still currently the only one of the school at the junior college, which is a smaller school, Division I. And in the finals, we went overtime, right? So that overtime is an extra 10 minutes of playing, and from there, whoever scored first wins. And I remember in the huddle what I told the guys. I said, guys, 10 minutes. What is 10 minutes of our lives?
Yeah.
What is 10 minutes of our lives? We have an opportunity here to potentially remember this moment for the rest of our lives if we give it everything. Right. So let's not go out on any regrets, even if this game doesn't end as we want to, but at least we got to get out of here and be proud of ourselves because we have given it everything we have. And we went in and we scored the winning goal.
Wow, that would inspire me, Medele. Okay, so look, as busy as you are as an athlete, as I understand it, you're also a coach for kids. Can you tell us about that experience and who you're working with?
Yes, so it's for coaching. Coaching is just to say about it. It's in Paris at 15, 16, my coaches will always say, you should think about becoming a coach one day. And I always say, no, coaching isn't for me. You need a lot of patience for it. But looking back at the history that I have, looking back at it, every step of the way, there was always a redirection toward that coaching aspect of things. So, for example, after UConn, there were so many other opportunities that did not involve coaching, but the best opportunity came with a coaching option, right? So I took that best opportunity, and for the first time, I was exposed to actually becoming a coach. And for the first 6 months, I was like, no, my mind is into this. I would just want to focus on playing. But then my perspective shifted. The moment I start seeing the impact that I was having on the young kids that were 9, 10, I kind of saw myself in them when I was 9 years old, 10 years old, playing the game and how much passion I had about the game, right? And I say, oh man, what if at 9 years old, 10 years old, I had somebody like myself that was so passionate about the game and could have just mentored me toward my playing career, right? How much different things would have been for me? Would have been better? Maybe, right? So why can I not be this for these younger kids coming after, right? Now, just kind of taking the eyes off myself and giving back, right? So that's what I did. And I fall in love with it. Coaching became a passion. And I always say to people, playing now makes me happy, but coaching fulfills me. So there's
Wow.
a difference there, right? Because happiness is just about myself, but fulfillment, I believe, is more so about what I'm giving back to to other people, and coaching is providing that for me.
Wow,
Yeah.
well, you are wise beyond your years. That is just awesome. So let's say that you were sitting with a parent who has a 10-year-old and this kid wants to play on your team.
Yeah.
And a parent asked you, Coach KO, what will my son learn from you beyond the skills of being a soccer player? What would you say to that parent?
Wow. So, so first of all, I think that's a great question because I've been in that situation often. But what I often say to parents is to understanding that soccer is a good platform for the players to learn about life outside the game, right? And I was blessed with those opportunity. So often what I tell the parent to look for is where are the players learning that they can implement in their day-to-day life. And for me, there are some concept like consistency in the hard work. To be
Mhm.
able to get from point A to point B, there's a gap there, right?
Ah, yeah.
And that gap is only filled with consistency in the work that you're giving,
Mhm.
right? So if your son wants to become a Division 1 athlete and he's only 10 years old, well, there's 8 years before that potential scholarship. So what is your son doing between that 8 years, and what is he learning about himself between that time period is what's going to determine if he's going to have a Division 1 scholarship or not. Nothing else. He could have great abilities, he could have great faith, but if he's not consistent in what he's doing for that period amount of time, most likely not gonna land there, right? And that really reveals a character of a person over time. So that's usually what I tell the parent to look for. And as they start focusing more on those steps and more on the out and less on the outcome, 90% of the time the result just flow.
That's profound, Coach. What I hear you say is that, and I think this is true for every person in
Oh yeah,
any endeavor, is where you are. This is your start point,
right.
is where you want to go. And success is simply closing that
The
gap.
gap.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, yes, indeed, and that's all it is.
Mhm.
And it could come as fast as whatever you're destined to have, or as long as it can take. But you cannot give up on those steps. You
Yeah.
cannot skip those steps either,
Mhm.
right? So that gap is what really reveals a person and determine your character in the long run. And
I love the way you see the world. I love the way you express, your sense of the world. And some of the better writers and teachers and speakers today share the kinds of things that you're sharing with us now. So I want to ask you one thing before we leave this. Where do you think this outlook, this worldview comes from for you? Because what I'm getting here is that there's a philosophical view of the world, or even a spiritual view that you have
Mhm.
of the world. So, if you hear me on this one, I'm asking, where do
Yeah.
you think that came from? Where do you think it comes from?
Wow. So I think at first it comes with the education that I've received from my parents. I think I'm very blessed to say I have an amazing I have amazing parents that early on try to put some values in me, right? And also living in different part of the world just kind of give you a different perspective on how to appreciate certain things. Because when you look at a country like Togo, opportunities are limited, but talents are equally given to kids. So there might be a 26 years young lad in Togo that has my potential or more, but it does not have the same opportunities as
Yeah.
I do, right? So that make me see the world in a different perspective. And I think third is really much so on also personal growth. I'm big on that spiritual and personal growth, right? I have I believe in God, and reading daily and kind of connecting myself to a higher power also always keep me grounded on what I feel that is my purpose here. So I always say this to the younger kids at high school now that they're in high school now that I coach is that the importance of thinking about your personal growth. It's not to take lightly every day, right? The same process you go through working out and training your muscle, right? Your body, your legs. The same thing you have to train also your mind to understand that there's always a room for you to grow, spiritually, individually. So yeah, I think surely those are the three things mainly that shape my view on things. And the last thing I'll say is mentorship.
Mhm.
Surrounding myself with people that have been to a place that I've never been before, and understanding what it took for them to get there, right?
That's
And it could be in a
fantastic.
completely different field, like you. I want to hear your story outside this. I want to hear how you got to where you are. I want to hear the people that you have met. I want to hear what it took for you to get there, the hard work, the hardship, because that's also things that give me a different perspective and
Mhm.
keep me grounded
Yeah,
for sure.
well, Coach Kalo, I would play for you. Just talking with you, I truly would play for you. You've touched upon this before, but I want to read something that you once said, and I want you to add a little commentary on this for me, if you're open to it.
Absolutely.
So here's the quote that I got from you. Not, I didn't speak with you, but in my research, this is what I
Yeah.
got. You said, and I'm quoting now, you develop a unique, and you talked about anyone, you develop a unique perspective and knowledge of the game, we talk about soccer, when you experience different cultures and coaching styles.
Oh yeah.
So can you kind of expound upon that for us?
Absolutely. So that's a great quote. I mean, I don't even I kind of spoke out of my heart. Really, it's not something that I surely planned, but I believe not just with soccer. Really, it's even in a workplace, right? If a big firm has only people that are born and raised in America, right? Let's consider that. They were born and raised in America and they never went outside America. They never see the world from a different view. So now they're asked to produce something. So mostly they will produce something that is just tied to what they know, which
Mhm.
is the American perspective. But the moment you add somebody that comes from India into the mix, somebody that comes from Ghana into the mix, somebody that comes from France into the mix. Now, what you have here is a beautiful mix of perspective. And often people see that to be a bad thing.
Mhm.
But I believe that's a blessing because now you're not seeing the world from your view, you get to see it from somebody else's lens that's been to a place where you've never been before. And part of the reason why I feel that I'm so fortunate and so blessed is because I got to experience that, not just for a month or two. I got to live in those different places, not yet Asia, but I got to live in Africa, in Togo, got to live in Europe, in Paris, and I'm here, I'm in America. So I have the view, especially when it comes to my background, which is football, soccer, to have the best of all three worlds, right? And now when I'm speaking with a coach that has just been in America and is talking about what he believes will work for the American soccer culture, well, I don't know, because this is how it's done over here in France, and it's working really well. But this is how it's also done in Africa, right? And kind of exchange those experiences, which I think are so valuable. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, Coach, and just talk with you and hearing you express that, I'm just smiling, and I'm not sure. Really, I guess you can't see it on my face because it's so inspiring. Because what I hear you say is that diversity makes all of us better. You know,
Oh,
in every area, including sports.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's so it's it's like a new oxygen, Are
Yeah.
you getting right? Just kind of meeting different people. It's just, and the example of soccer is perfect. Perfect example is soccer. We could have 11 players on the field,
Mhm.
all speaking a different language, but still understand each other,
Wow. Whoa, that's profound. Okay.
right? Still understand each other.
Yeah.
Why? Because soccer itself, it's a
Mhm.
language, right? So
Mhm.
same with basketball. You could have a player from Argentina, one from France, one from America, one from Asia, one from any other part in this top five. Okay, so now they're playing basketball, but because they've been playing the game for so long and they have a IQ, a knowledge of the game that is a high thinking enough, now they could pass and move and take shot when they need to because it's a whole language in itself. So in the workplace is the same way. If we both engineers and architects, we've been studying the same thing, but just in a different part of the world, right? So now we could mix that knowledge together and just give something that is amazing. So I
That's
actually believe that.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic, Coach. So look, I mean, you're an athlete, and this is you don't play soccer or you don't coach. Well, I guess you can coach soccer on Zoom, but at some point you got to get with the team and get on the field. So let me ask you this: we've been living, of course, we all have been living with COVID-19 since around March of 2019, and now we're in the first part of 2022. So how do you keep yourself safe, and how do you if you talk with a parent, how do you keep my son safe? How do you all do that, given the world we're now in?
Absolutely. So that's a good question. Again, it's a tough moment, that we live in with the pandemic. So
Mhm.
we had to quickly readjust our methods as coaches. So in that March 2020, 2020 to April 2020, when the pandemic started, we kind of had everything being remote, right? Where the focus we told the parents was for the kids to work on their individual skills,
Mhm.
right? Which is important as soccer, working on their physical and technical skills. Where kids were in their basement having some drills, and I, as a coach, would be on Zoom showing the drills, and they work for a certain amount of time, and we kept that going. We kept that going for about 5 to 6 months, right? And kids came out of there in great shape.
Mhm.
Technically, they were in a better mindset as well because we kept them busy 3 times a week, right? We kept them sane, quote unquote,
Yeah.
right? And I myself also is very important that I keep myself always within that time busy as well. It was tough for me. I lost my father
Oh,
in
sorry.
April
Mhm.
2020, so it was a very difficult moment for me. But coaching and just kind of exercising on a daily basis just kind of kept me grounded at that time. And then we transitioned into a phase where we had the vaccines, things
Yeah.
were a little bit safer. We started to train outdoor, but we had masks, and us as coaches, we had to come we have to bring drills that were almost 6 feet apart, where but
Okay.
still the kids still get the shape that they need, still get the work that they need in. It was a challenge for us as coaches to constantly be innovating our drills. And then we went into the last phase where it was more live, right? Where kids start playing more because everybody was vaccinated and why not? And now we're entering back a phase where it's a little bit more also challenging. The past 2 weeks, I had to cancel training that we had outdoor that we had planned because the COVID cases are spiking back up. So we had to anticipate what's gonna come ahead. Today at 7 p.m. instead of being outdoor, we'll be online on
Mhm.
Zoom, getting back into working individually and why not. So until everybody again is tested and have the booster shot and why not, right? We keep things online
I
until
see.
it's safe again to go back out. Yeah.
Well, look, that's fantastic. You all keep continuing, even though we are living in challenging times. Now, Coach, you have touched upon this before, but I want you to take us deeper into it. I know that from what you've said, you do more than just play soccer. You do more than just take care of yourself, but you care about the society in which you live and you are engaged in this society. So first, let me ask you this. And I'm not sure if this is a fair question, but why do you care? I mean, look, you're a player. You have
Yeah.
been successful, and you are successful. Your playing ability took you to college, perhaps with a scholarship. You got your degree. You're making money. Why do you care about the community?
For the simple only one word, I think that is I should have people always consider about caring about others is legacy. I think,
Mm,
and my father was big on that. What are you What are you leaving behind? What will you remember? What will you be remembered for? Just an athlete that made good money and and that's it, or are you gonna have more impact into the community you live in, even if it's a small one, right?
mhm.
But imagine if everybody just have a small impact, as little as that it can be, right? And again, you never know who you're impacting and who needs you the most. So for me, it's not much about how much I'm making or what I've achieved before or what is still ahead of me at the moment. It's more so on how can I leave a legacy, something that even when I'm not part of this world anymore would
Yeah,
still exist. And if it's not even material, it could be through people, right? Because I believe that the kids that I have the opportunity to coach now will forever remember some of the teaching
mm,
that they've learned from me, right?
yeah,
And now they would be able to teach the next generation, right? And
yeah,
so on. So at least even if it's not a material thing where, oh well, they weren't able to get a Division 1 scholarship or they weren't able to get a car because of Coach Alex, but at least they remember the teaching about the 5 swings, where I say to them every day, 5 things. You get up 5 things out of your day based on your goals, and you do those 5 things every single day. I learned that from Maxwell, and I
okay,
thought it was so inspiring. I said 5 things every day. You get up, okay, spiritually, mentally, your body, you got to go to school, you got to do your homework, whatever are your goals,
mhm.
name 5 things that rain, snow, whatever is going on outdoor, you do those 5 things.
That's
And over the
fantastic.
period of time, you'll be successful. So if they're able to remember just one thing and that's what they remembered, guess what? They're now 16. Maybe when they turn 36, they have a family. They can now pass on to their kids
Yeah,
and so on. Or before then, whoever they come across with, friends, a mentee, why not? They can also pass on to those things. So I'm very big on that. I think it's a um, very humble way to say to God, thank you for the opportunity you're giving me every day. And I'm
yeah.
going to go out and make the best out of it by helping others. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Coach. That's beautiful indeed. Now, I want you to travel with me
Yeah.
into a more philosophical question. And I want you to consider, and I'm not, I hope that I'm the first person to ever ask you this question, your vision for yourself and your vision for the world. When you look out of those eyes, what do you see for yourself going forward? And what do you see for the world going forward?
Wow. Yeah. Oh,
Oh, Coach, I just lost you, your audio. I just lost your audio.
can you hear me?
Yes, I got you back.
Yes. So sorry. Yeah, I was saying for sure you were the first person to ask about my vision for the world. I think my vision as an individual has been asked before, but definitely for sure about the world. It's a very tough one. But I guess my vision for myself and where I envision to be the 10 years from now is obviously being, hopefully have a family that I'm of myself, But most importantly, I've been having those. It's almost like vivid dreams, the past year where I see myself opening a facility that is around soccer, where I could still impact kids in this community on a greater level, right, at any age, and hopefully keep on growing and expanding the network to different states in America, to just help out younger generation and understanding that being an athlete is great. It's great if you're blessed with some ability, but what are you doing with those abilities if you're only limiting them to the sports that you're playing in? And that goes to not just soccer, but every other sport, right? Basketball,
Mhm.
football, baseball, every other sport. To use that God-given ability that you have to think about the fact that you could be so much greater than just an athlete. It's nothing wrong with just being a professional athlete. I am myself. So but, you know, what if you could give more to the world? What if you have more in you, right? So I hopefully that I can kind of shift that narrative around about athletes a little bit in the future, and starting here in America and hopefully also in Africa and France, right?
Yeah.
That's my vision. And for the world, I just constantly hope we live in a place where um, the one thing is love, right? It's caring about one another. That's it. If your neighbor is in need, just reach out and just extend your arm. I had a mentor, Emmanuel Ajayi, that always say to me that, Alex, God will never give you what stay in you. If it doesn't flow through you, he takes it back. And that's very profound if you think about it, right? So what he was trying to tell me indirectly is the moment you're reaching out with your right hand to provide help, what you don't know or what you will find out eventually is your left hand is kind of already extending itself for God to just kind of pour into it,
Mhm.
right? So the only way we could all be successful and live in a better world is if we decide to just see the next person across of us struggling and helping out, to the best of our abilities,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be something big. It could be something small as, hey, how are you doing today? So that's my vision for the world. Again, it sounds like a utopia, but I believe one day we could all be in a place where we thinking about one another.
Well, yeah, that's profound, and I think a lot of us don't want to use that four-letter word, but you put it out there. Love. That's all. Love. And so I thank you for that. And but Alex, I've enjoyed our conversation. Let me ask you one more thing. Is
Yes.
there anything that you want to share with us that we have not touched on already?
Yeah, well, we have, but I really want to, invite my fellow pro athletes out there, or guys that are into the sports, coaches, to really understand um, the importance that we have into this young generation, this next generation. I think often that role of a coach is very um, limited to a certain thing as, hey, this kids needs to be good at performing in their sports and that's it, right? But I think us coaches, we need to provide platform where we're not just coaches, but we more so mentors for
Yeah.
these young guys that are coming in, right? So I've been thinking for a long time to maybe one day just kind of write a book on this, and why not? Um, but that's one of the things right now I'm very big on: mentoring the next generation, helping them, showing them the way, and hopefully they would avoid some of the mistakes we have made, right, when we were at their age. So
That's
yeah.
great. And that book is in you, Coach KO. That book definitely is in you. Well, once again, I've enjoyed our conversation immensely. You are an amazing person to
Thank you.
talk to. So perhaps we can do this again, on video for the
Absolutely.
podcast. down the road. Okay, so just stay with me for a moment. Let me close out the show with a little music. You've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. My guest today was Coach Medele Alexandre Ko. He's a professional soccer player and coach. We are committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Coach Ko is definitely one of those individuals. And Coach, I really enjoyed having you today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.